Hi friends, Simit here from informedtrades.com. On the screen right now you see a chart of gold. And gold's been in the news recently, or on Friday, because of the huge move it made this past Friday. The market closed, we went up over $20, it seems. Really big move, longest move I believe since December of 2014. So I think since right around here, or maybe here actually. This was a big day too. Wow, really big day. So a very big move in some time, which has a lot of people interested or talking about it. However, whenever you see a big one-day move like this, I think it's useful to look at the weekly chart, and that doesn't really stick out at all. So it's still just, it looks pretty regular. We're still in a downward price channel. We're still below the 50 simple moving average. So I don't think there's much that's of interest here. I have a pretty significant position for me personally in gold, so that's definitely, it's nice to see it rally from that perspective, but really it's not that meaningful, and the technical situation hasn't changed. We can take a look at silver. It's going to be basically the same story. Let's actually start with the daily chart so we can see the move. Huge move here. We did cross above the 50 simple moving average, so that's an example of at least there's something technically interesting there. But of course, we've been going above and back and forth beyond it anyway. What's more interesting, rather than this big candle here, is that we have a pattern of higher lows. Right? I can actually draw that out for you. Right here, we have a pattern of higher lows, and we're above the 50 simple moving average. So if there's a reason to be bullish, I think those would be more significant bullish reasons or causes to be bullish. And then if we put a support line, really I think it'd be, even if the market closed above 1545 but didn't make such a big explosive move, I think that would be pretty interesting because this is a major resistance level. So those are the basic point here, is that the big one-day move, it may get a lot of media attention, but it's the technical patterns that you want to keep an eye out for that are really going to be more significant. Here's a weekly chart. Silver's big move, one-day move, doesn't really show up here either. One thing I did think was interesting was the gold bugs index, because gold stocks also went up, had an enormous move. Let's look at the daily chart there. And you can see pretty big move. Well, actually, it doesn't even show up here, although it's individual stocks. So I guess the index as a whole, but a lot of individual stocks did make pretty big moves, which is to be expected. What I think is interesting about this index here is you see that price has been in a range here. So we see a range after a decline. Often that's known as an accumulation pattern in trading. So this signals that if you see a range like this after a big decline, it suggests that buyers may be accumulating. So to me, when I see something like this, that's what jumps out, and that's what's interesting, regardless of the individual candles. The fact that we're now above the 50 cent moving average could be a sign of some bullishness as well. So that's about it. I think there's some things to be that are interesting here in the gold and silver market. Like I mentioned, this potential accumulation pattern, that's what it looks like to me in gold stocks, also crossing above the 50 simple moving average on the Hui index, as well as on silver, I think is interesting. But the big move, the big one-day move, I don't think that's really that notable. I think it's more so the technical patterns that are worth paying attention to. And with respect to gold, let's just go back to that real quickly. There's still, we have a pattern of higher lows, which is definitely interesting, but ultimately, if you look at the weekly chart especially, you can see we're still sort of in a downtrend, or we are in a downtrend. This downward channel is still here, and we're above the 50 simple moving average, which is sloping up, so that's interesting. Below the 200 though, and really, let's see if we can close above this resistance level here, 1170, or even this one here, 1160. I think that's more significant, and closing above those will be more significant than any single one-day big moves. And that's about it. Any questions you have, anything you want to add, join us at informedtrades.com. Best of luck in your trading and investing. We'll see you next time. Take care.